What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host, as always. My name is Jimmy, and as we start off every show, that's with gratitude. Just want to say thank you to any and everyone who supports us. Special shout out to all the students from By the Hood University, as well as all the youth from our By the Hood ownership camp. You're probably checking this out right before the holidays, so happy holidays to everyone. If you celebrate, and if you don't, shout out to you anyway. But our platform, as you know, is designed to highlight brothers and sisters who are doing amazing work. My partner Corey is not here with me right now. He's actually teaching a class for the youth. But, we got to highlight this sister right here. She's doing amazing work. Her story is phenomenal. We spoke on a panel together. And when I heard her story, it gave me chills. So I said, listen, I definitely want to get you to come on to the podcast, share your story with our audience, because I'm pretty sure that someone can be inspired by your journey. So without further ado, I have our sister Cocoa Kearns on. Coco, how are you?
I'm good. I'm in a really good space. I can't complain. I feel like I've worked so hard and prayed so hard to get where I am. If I'm upset in any type of situation, I feel like that's kind of like me being ungrateful. When I've been blessed to do the things that I'm doing and currently fulfilling my purpose. So I'm good.
Nah,
I'm in a
that's
good
amazing.
space.
That's amazing to hear. Listen, so you told some of your story, but I want you to share with our audience. And you were very transparent. It was moving. Tell us about where you were born, raised. And give us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, North Philly to be exact. Because if you are from Philly, then you already know. We always specify what part of the city. So I'm from North Philly, 32nd and Diamond. I went to Strawberry Mansion High School, graduated from there in 2011, and from there went to college at Clark Atlanta. Got my master's at Drexel University, and I had moved back to the city. But just in terms of my upbringing and where I come from, I came from a single family household. My dad was part of the picture for the most part. And then he left when I was I'll say 8. And that has, changed my life. But both with me living in a house with my parents prior to my dad leaving, both of my parents struggled with drug addiction. And so even at 7 or 8, when my dad left, my dad was like my world. I was always the daddy's girl, point blank, period. It didn't matter. If I had to choose between any parent, it was always him, or anybody. It was always him. And then when he left the household, of course, my whole life changed. I didn't care to celebrate holidays, birthdays, or anything, because my dad made me feel very special. Everything was always about me, and that changed. And so, growing up, my mom didn't know how to be a mom. And she had me at 30. She had my sister at 23. So it wasn't a situation where as though she was such a young parent. But one thing I do know and understand, that I understand a whole lot about drug addiction. And so me being in a household, having two parents, regardless if they were in the household together or not, addicted to drugs, I knew for sure what I did not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the only way for me to get out of my current situation was to make the best of it. And so school was always my way of out. I would stay at school as long as I could stay at school. I would get involved with any type of after school programs or whatever it is that I can do to make sure that, I was on the right track. Because I was taught, like a lot of students are taught, or kids are taught, the American dream. You go to school, you go to college, you get a job, and that's it. Make sure that your job has benefits and you're good to go. And so, I took that very well. And so I would literally, school was my way of out. I shared this at the panel as well. At 10 years old, I experienced my mom. She had an overdose. She overdosed in front of me, and I was in 5th grade. And so if this is happening, and I still, at the end of the day, went to school and got to school on time. And there's so many things that happen, in our lifestyles and kids' upbringing that people don't necessarily know about, and you don't see that at face value. So as a former educator, I look into all of that, and when I'm ever educating a person or people in general, I'm trying to, get through to the whole person, not just a part of the person. 10% of what you do as an educator is teach. The other 90 is building relationships.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I have a couple questions based upon what you said. Did you have a
Yeah.
teacher or someone in the neighborhood or maybe someone at school that recognized maybe your struggle and went out of their way to help you along your journey?
Absolutely. So one of my teachers, she was my teacher from 6th to 8th grade, and she's like a mother to me. Like her and I talk literally like every single day. Her name is Aisha Blackshear, and I don't think had it not been for her, and she was one of the first Black teachers that I had, and so her approach was different. Like she would come through the neighborhood, drive through, sit on the steps. Like she would really, she was a part of our lives and still is to this day. And I'm 28.
And shout out to her. We want to make sure we give her a shout out, and shout out to all the teachers that go above and beyond, because you guys are superheroes. It's interesting because my partner Corey, who still teaches to this day, and I'll be telling him like, you don't have to teach no more. He's like, I got to be there for these kids, especially as a Black man being in the school district. And it's man, so it's a lot of ways I want to go with the story based upon what you said. But one of the things is some of the things you see in the inner city, specifically in Philadelphia, that's normal to us, you realize isn't normal, right? As you grow and get out of there. Recently, Corey and I did a talk for a school in Philadelphia. And what was crazy is we were talking to the students and we asked them, did anybody know anyone personally that died from gun violence? And we literally had every hand raised. Yeah. I've never seen nothing like every single student in the school. This is in North Philadelphia. I'm not going to mention the school or any kids, but every single student knew someone personally that died of gun violence, right? So when you talk about drug addiction, gun violence, things that plague our communities, this is what makes your story so powerful, right? So education was your way out, and you talked about, the teacher that you had that helped you get through that. So leaving Mansion, I guess your dream was always to go to college. You got into Clark. That's amazing school. Like, so what was that journey? What was that journey like?
Oh, listen, one of my mentors, he was my mentor from high school, Lieutenant Nordine. So he said to me, all of my kids go to HBCUs before they go anywhere. Because my whole thing was I was going to be a lawyer and I was going to Harvard. That was it. I was going straight to Harvard. I wasn't doing nothing else. In my mind, I was like, I've been around Black people all my life. I'm going to go to Harvard and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And he stopped me. And when I tell you, I'm so grateful for him and that experience alone. One, because had it not been for him and two other mentors that I had, which was my high school principal and another officer who worked for the school district of Philadelphia, had it not been for them, that's how I went on my first HBCU college tour. And they sent me on a college tour, stayed at the schools. It was amazing. But when I got to Clark, I've never felt the way that I felt before. I felt like Atlanta is just the Mecca. It's like, it's the place for Black people. I felt like I was in a great space. I didn't feel like I was competing, against anybody. Now there was definitely competition, but it was like, oh, like I'm here to do exactly whatever it is that I can do and help you at the same time. My professors pushed me. I joined my sorority. So I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma chapter. I crossed 2014. That was an experience in itself. And when I tell you, if I was late to a class, if I didn't show up to a class, when I tell you my professors were calling me or texting me like, hey, what's going on? Where you at? And I didn't have that, even when I went to school, I was 18. And so 28 now, and my mom have 18 years clean, thank God.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes, shout out to her. But at that moment, she still didn't know how to be a mom. And that's not anything that I faulted her for because of her upbringing, right? And so a lot of us only know what we experience, and that's learned behavior. And so, me leaving Philly, going to Atlanta, that was 12 hours away by car, and not having nobody there. And the same exact thing happened, literally how my teachers and teachers turned mentors took care of me when I was in middle school and high school. The same thing happened with my professors, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for them.
Oh, you got a real village around you. It must be something about you that everyone, you're protected. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that HBCU experience is something else. So I went to Lincoln, right? So I understand, like, being on a campus of HBCU, it's hard to explain to someone who's never been through it, right? When you see people that look like you and they're there for, a higher purpose. So that's dope from going to Clark. And you said you got your master's from Drexel.
Yes.
That's dope, too. What's your master's in?
Thank you. Educational leadership.
Okay. Yeah, I got my master's from Drexel as well. Yeah. So, we got that connection. So it's in real estate. But anyway, so now starts you down your journey of getting it? Because you're a complete entrepreneur at this point. I follow your page, so I've seen, your real estate. You got the vending business. You got everything going on. You out here getting to it. Stock options. What was that journey like? How did you go from that? Because you were an educator, right? You worked in the school district. So how did you go from working in the school district to then getting into entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. So when I got home from Clark, Atlanta, 2015 is when I moved back to Philadelphia. And when I came home, gentrification was through the roof. Like, it really was a thing. And I could not, honestly, couldn't believe what I was looking at. I'm like, wow, I grew up in low income housing, like literally Section 8. And those houses are 700,000. I'm in my mind, like, there is no way that this is a thing. Like, what? I started seeing all time. When I came back, I'm telling, I had frequently came back during breaks, but I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I was like, wait, huh? And I kept hearing friends who I had went to school with, high school, they like, yeah, so-and-so had to move, or this person had to move. And I was like, why? So even if they were still, living in low income housing or what have you, they was getting moved all over the city or out of Philadelphia County. And I was like, well, what is going on? And then Temple continued. That Temple is aggressively buying up every single thing. So much happening, even the housing projects are different. Their stipulations are different now. So I'm looking like, wow. So when I got back, I saw that, and my realtor, who actually watched me grow up, I follow her on Instagram, and she was like, you can own what you probably, her post said something like, you probably spend more in rent than what you can spend in mortgage. And I was like, okay, cool. So when I got back, I moved. I did Teach for America. I moved in a condo with 2 other girls who did TFA. And so we were all roommates, 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo, spending $2,000 a month on this condo. And I was like, we're across the street from a project that they didn't even fix up yet. And spending how much? That's crazy. I don't have a problem living in the hood at all. Yeah. At all. But I just couldn't believe what we were spending. I can look out my window and I'm just like, what? The math didn't math in that situation. So it just didn't. It wasn't adding up. So I said, you know what I got to do? I got to figure this out. And so I've always been a risk taker. Always been a risk taker. And because I grew up a certain way, I grew up literally thinking, having my mindset that I got to save because I know what it is to not have. I know what it is to not eat. I know what it is to not have a phone on. I know what it is to have a bill or something off, or having, my mom, experiencing her live paycheck to paycheck and literally barely making bills. So when I graduated 2015, I get back to Philly. I'm watching all this. I had started my job. I was making $46,000. I had never made $46,000 in my life. So I was like, well, I lived a pretty good life. I had a car. I didn't have a car note. I was like, there's literally nothing else that I spend my money on other than travel. And me traveling, I travel on a nice low budget. So I was able to save $1,300 a month.
Okay.
So I'm saving $1,300 a month. I'm on Instagram. So I reach out to my realtor, Yasmin. So I reach out to her and I'm like, hey, I see you posting this. What's going on? Now, a lot of people, I hear a lot of people say, oh my God, I dreamed about being a homeowner. I dreamed about this. I didn't dream about none of that. And I talk seriously, I didn't dream. I've been to 37 countries. Okay. I've never dreamed about that. A lot of the things that I do, I never dreamed about. And this is what I'm about to say is super duper important, because a lot of people don't understand that when you come from a certain place, your vision is limited. You don't have my wildest dream was to go to Disney World at 15 years old. That was my wildest dream. Wow. When you're living in poverty and you come from that, you can't see yourself outside of your current situation. So when people are judging other communities or people who live in poverty or what have you, and not understanding what's actually going on and how their experience in life have limited them to an extent that they don't even believe that anything greater than what they currently have is for them. I understand that because that was me.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. And I'm glad you said that, because so we do a lot of work in the community, and one of the things we do is speak at the Youth Study Center.
Yeah.
And when you hear the the young men there, and they tell their stories of, you know, not being able to eat, you know, haven't seen their mom in months. Like, it's easy to judge them and judge everything that happens, but you don't know their stories or how they came up. The average person that's judging them couldn't even live, you know, the way they've lived. Like, so some of the stories I hear are heartbreaking, but that's why you know, you gotta have empathy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you gotta have empathy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even in a situation like that, like I had a kid when I was teaching on Zoom send me a message like, hey, you know, I wasn't here yesterday because my mom got killed. You know, I found my mom. Like, it's so much. And I'm sitting here like, and you on this computer right now, you know. So
Yeah,
when we think
yeah.
about even the whole pandemic situation, and I know this is
Mhm.
kind of going off, but it's like, it's people living in poverty. It's not that they don't care about COVID. We've been living in a pandemic our entire lives. So this
Mhm.
means absolutely nothing if we always, always, always made the best of our situation. It's not that
Yeah,
we're concerned, but I literally got to look over my back. Just walking down the street
yeah.
or sitting in my house. Like, the violence and everything that's going on is through the roof. But I reached out to the realtor, and she, you know, so I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm interested. And I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I'm always like, when I'm about to do something crazy, I'm like nervous, like, oh my God, what
Mhm.
am I about to do? When I tell you, I feel like we saw over 30 houses, and I was just like, oh God. And I know that I wanted to be in my neighborhood. So I
Mhm.
wanted to buy in my neighborhood, which is Strawberry Mansion. I'm telling you. So a lot of people be like, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? And I used to teach my kids this too, that making it out the hood is a mindset.
Yep.
In my mind, you haven't made it out the hood until you came back, bought in your hood, and taught others how to do it. Because everybody didn't have, you know, the access to the people that I had access to.
Yep.
Right. So the
Mhm.
resources that I had, I can be a resource in my own community to continue putting people in position. So
Facts.
no, I'm not the person, and still to this day, I still got my house in the hood and I live there. Now I
Mhm.
travel a lot, but you know, that's
No.
my residence.
And that's important for you to do. It's important for people in the neighborhoods to see people that look like them that aren't doing all the craziness.
Absolutely. And that's the part. Like, you have to see it to believe it. When I was in high school and I saw all of the people coming in, they would have motivational speakers or what have you come. I'm 15, 16, whatever. I'm sitting there like, man, y'all just got lucky. Even if they had somebody who came and was like, you know, I went to jail and now I'm 45 and I did 10, 20, 15 years and now I have X, Y, and Z. In my mind, that's not somebody I can relate to
Mhm.
because I'm living that right now.
Yeah.
I'm 15. Tell me what can I do right now? I don't have no money. It's nothing I can do with credit. What can I do? So, you
Mhm.
know, even in that aspect, when I decided not to go to law school and to jump in the classroom, I knew for sure. I said to Teach for America, if y'all don't place me in Philadelphia, I'm not taking a job.
Mhm.
I had to get home first.
Yeah.
Georgia, Atlanta was great, but that's not my community.
Mhm.
I don't speak the same language as the kids in Atlanta. And doesn't mean that I wouldn't be, you know, great there, but I wanted to get back. I was 22 in the classroom. I'm 4'11" right now. All of my kids bigger than me.
Yeah. But
All
no,
of them are bigger than me.
but it's
And
important.
so,
That's important work. Like that's like I said, that's important work. That's important work. So when you went along this journey with your real estate agent, when you finally found a property, you know, how did you make the transition from just getting that one property in your neighborhood to figuring out like this is something I can do and I can make money other ways outside of teaching? What was that?
yep. So I literally started educating myself. And when I tell you I started educating myself, I was on Instagram, I was on YouTube, but primarily on Instagram. And I tell people we spend so much time on this app, and while it is a lot of fluff and it's a lot of things that you know you should be
Mhm.
filtering through, it still sparks some type of interest. So when I heard about business credit and LLCs, and nobody taught me none of that. Even though I done had 2 degrees, nobody taught me anything about.
What made you interested in the begin with, right? Because like you just said, when you're on IG, like there's different silos in IG. You got like LLC, you got all kinds of IGs, right? What made you interested in like, you know, business credit, those things to begin with? What was it that made you say, let me like study this?
It was too good to be true. That's
Ah,
what made me interested.
okay.
So
Got you.
yeah, I learned by doing. So I'm like that. This person I'm following saying you can get $100,000 of business credit. You can get 20 from this bank, 20 from that bank. Or if 5 friends get together, you get 20, you get 20. So I'm sitting there like, child, let me see what this is about. And I started reaching out. I didn't even know and understand credit. And I got my house in 2017. So it's a lot of things that I learned really, really fast. And I was a student my entire life, And so I was like, what am I never had a break from school. And so I'm like, all right, so at this moment, I need to figure out how this is going to work for me. And even in that situation, I didn't see myself being a full-blown entrepreneur. I was like, let me get this one house and let me see how that go. And then maybe I'll buy some more. And it honestly happened. So I got my house 2017, 2019, 2018, I had left the one school that I was working at, and I went to work for another school in New Jersey, and I was working in HR. And so I'm on Twitter and I'm just sitting there like, I don't have no interviews. I don't have anything to do today. Like, I'm bored and I can't do this. I can't. I'm like, maybe I should go back to the classroom, whatever, what have you. So I had reached out to a friend who I went to at Clark Atlanta with. And I'm like, he's from Baltimore. He was like, hey, I'm like, hey, I saw you post something on Twitter saying that you just purchased a house. Like, I'm interested. What's up? And so he told me, he was like, yeah, just, check out this auction. And I was like, all right, cool. I check out the auction before you know it. And him and I set a date to go to Baltimore because he's from there. So I was like, all right, cool. I started bidding on 3 properties. I made me an account. I just started bidding. I'm at work bored. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, what is going on? So somebody was going against me on the other 2 and I won one. So I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know what I just did. So my coworker's like, what's going on? I was like, I just bought a house. She like, girl, what? How? And I was like, yeah, on this auction. Like, look, my phone started ringing. They calling me. I was like, oh my God. Now, I knew nothing about, what I knew about Baltimore is the Black and Wax Museum and the Harbor and the Wire. That's it. Literally, that was it. I just knew that having property and being a real estate investor, like, what in my mind, what can go wrong in the long run, right? It's an investment because somebody listening to this or watching this will say a lot of things could go wrong. But in my mind, I don't think so. It's an investment. That's the point. So, and again, I learned along the way. So I bought that house. They called me. They like, yeah, you won. You have 30 days to submit the rest of the money. And I was like, all right, cool. Now I won it for $4,500. So I was like, okay, great. Like, I got $4,500. Let me figure out the rest of this. And so I got that house. I started signing up for my LLC. So then I was thinking about all of these companies and people on social media who like, you can do this and you can do that. I started joining Facebook groups, filtering through all of the comments where they give you step by step to do all these things on your own. And it really started working out for me. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, wow, this bank really did just give me $10,000. Yeah. They didn't even, what happened? This company gave me this company gave me that. So I'm doing all these things. So I'm like, all right, great. So when I went to 30 days past, right before I went to close on that first property, I was looked at, this auction has a buy now section where it's no bid. You want the house, you tell them, you buy it. So while I went to close, I was like, yeah, I'm interested in this house. They was like, okay, well, you can bring the money when you come. Okay, great. Got another one. And I was like, all right, girl, now you got 2 houses. What's going on? Like, are you going to start fixing these? Like, what are you going to do? So I start getting on social media and I start telling people like, hey, like, I just bought a house in Baltimore for this, for that, whatever. I started teaching people. When I tell you, I literally had over 15 people purchase more than 30 houses in 30 days.
Wow.
And I didn't have the following that I have now. I literally had probably like 3,000 followers on Instagram. But it was, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. And so literally that ignited the flame and I went crazy. And when I say I went crazy, that was 2019, 2020 during the pandemic. This is how I started with the stock market. Obviously pandemic hit and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is crazy. All these people is getting all types of money, unemployment, all types of funding or whatever. I don't care what they were doing. I'm like, these people are getting over $100,000 and I'm sitting here working. I'm just teaching my class on Zoom because, we're in a pen. I'm like, this is insane. And I was jealous. I'm not going to lie. And so a lot of my success is due to heartbreak, right? Like these things that even, growing up, school was my way of out. Like I wanted to get away from, what it is that was going on in my household. So I had to stay at school. Stay at school. The longer you stay at school, the less time you got to be home. You get home, you eat. If you eat, you go to sleep. You wake up and you go back to school.
Yeah.
That's it. So for me, I needed things that was going to keep me busy. So I'm sitting here, I'm on the Zoom. I'm just like, this is a lot. Now, I did teach the last subject that I taught while I was teaching was African American history. Love teaching that. And so during the pandemic, I did travel. And so I literally did the slave trade. So I went from here to Europe, from Europe to Africa, to the West Indies, back to United States. And I'm grateful to be able to, give my kids that experience. And had it not been for COVID, that I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I'm actually, in Senegal at the Door No Return on Goree Island, like giving my students this experience. That's different versus me just teaching this in a classroom or even just on Zoom regularly.
Yeah.
So I was very grateful for that. So anyway, I'm on here. I'm like, all these people is running around with this money and they just buying designer clothes. And I'm just sitting here like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? One of my friends, I never watched stories on Instagram. I went on her Instagram, I clicked on her story, and she was saying she made this money off the stock market. And I'm like, oh, here we go. This is another Ponzi scheme or something like this is the flower. I was like, I don't know what's going on. So then I started looking into it. So now I'm on YouTube, now I'm on Google, and I'm like, whoa, hold up. All right, let me get me a Robinhood account. So I get the Robinhood account, and the very first trade that I made was with Ross. So Ross was the store, and I know nothing. I just know that all of my friends was waiting for Ross to open. Ross was like one of the last retail stores to open. So I was like, I still don't know what's going on. So I did a place to call. And on Robinhood, of course, for Ross, and I spent $69. That $69 made me over $980. It like with my initial investment and my profit, it was like a little over $1,000. So I was like, I can bring this money. I couldn't believe it. I was like, you mean to tell me I just did this and what happened? And so me not knowing nothing, I go right back in. I'm gonna keep buying because in my mind, this ain't really my money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I won this, but this ain't my money. So then I lost $500, and I was like, wait, hold up. I need to figure this out. And so that's when I started digging deep. And when I started digging deep in the stock market, I was like, oh, all right, cool. Now I know this. I'm already a teacher, so I started teaching people that. And so to literally teaching them, and I still have the class of the beginnings, right? So some people think that you have to have all this experience in the stock market and what have you to learn just the basics of how to invest and the minimum investment, all of those things. So I definitely have a class, to get people more comfortable and let them, invest. And so with that, 6 months passed, I made 90,000.
90,000 in 6 months in the stock market.
In the stock market, trading options.
All right, so now I got a couple questions. I want to a couple things I want to ask you, right? So we can step back. A couple of things I took from what you're saying as you're speaking. One of the things is, how you're always told, like, watch the company you keep, the people around you. And what I take from your story is like, that's not just in real life, that's also online, right? So your circle online matters just as much as the people you're around in terms of how you, use social media, right?
Absolutely.
That's part of your story. Next question I have for you is, growing up in the environment that you did, it seems to me, and I've talked to others who grew up in those like same situations who are now successful, and it's like one of the things that's a common thing is like, well, when you go through that, it's easier to take risks because you're like, when I come from that, like, what's really going to happen to me? I've already went hungry, so it's like, do you think that's part of like what makes you able to take these risks and just take action that way is because of what you've already been through?
Absolutely. Everything that I have ever been afraid of has already happened to me. So at what point, like, if anything, it would be me limiting myself, right? You grew up struggling. You literally had to figure it out. Even when my mom wasn't on drugs, what do you want to do at this point? And I've always said this to myself, and I've always said this to my students as well. At the end of the day, regardless, I don't care how old you are always in control of your own, you're in control of your life. Any decision that you make because you want to make it. When kids would come into the classroom, they know they not supposed to have a cell phone. You made a decision to pull that phone out. You made a choice to come to school on time. You made a choice to wear a uniform. You literally make choices in your own life. So why would I, beyond 18, blame any of my failures and or successes on my parents? It's my life. And if at any situation, any point you don't like it, guess who had the opportunity to change it? You.
That's right.
For me, to continue to walk or live in fear, what was the point of me going away to school? What was the point of me wanting anything other than my comfort zone? And that's what a lot of people don't like. People don't like things that's hard. Like I would never tell my students like this is hard, or college is hard. We got to be mindful of the words that we say and the things that we project. Fear comes from, it literally somebody projecting something. That's what I believe.
So, getting back to where you talked about making the 90,000 too, right? Yeah. You took that risk because, we just talked about you being able to take risk. What was the experience like when you figured out how the game actually works, right? So everybody has, I call it like a matrix moment, when you finally realize like, I've been lied to my whole life. Like people are out here making money without even leaving their couch. Like, what was that experience for you when you had that when you actually realized like, I can own assets or make these trades and I can make an income? What was that like for you?
That was like, I felt like it was the cheat code. Like I was like, wow, what any of those games, I don't know, let's just say Grand Theft Auto, when you do all types of literally a cheat code to get the fastest car, I really felt like I broke the cheat code. Like I'm on my way to wealth now. So to know to be and it also, like, I love history. So when I think about all these things, I'm like, I grew up thinking that the stock market was for white people. Like that was never anything that I don't know. I didn't know any black person who was into the stock market. I personally did not, even if it was somebody on TV, I never knew them. Who was that? You know how sometimes you can see yourself in certain things like, oh yeah, we had a black president. Like, all right, cool. So somebody else can be the president who's black. I never seen that at all. So I'm sitting there like, yo, I'm really doing this. When I tell you, I could not believe it. But honestly, that was the first matrix moment, which I kind of skipped over that, when I bought the properties in Baltimore and I was like, okay, cool. Again, I'm home. Everybody getting this money. What is that? April 16th, I purchased a block in Baltimore. And so at that moment, when you grow up, you typically hear your parents and family members or whoever, your teacher say, you can be whatever it is that you want to be when you grow up. I never felt that way until that moment, until April 16th, 2020 is when I honestly felt like I could be anything I wanted to be in the world.
Because you bought a block.
Because I bought a block.
That's powerful.
At 26.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Again, nothing that even to this day, and this is one thing that I always tell a lot of entrepreneurs and people in general, because we are so hard on ourselves, or at least I am. It's like, you got to celebrate the small wins. You have to celebrate the small wins. So for me, of course, that was a big win, but I was so used to like running. What's next? What's next? That I had to really sit down and think about like, damn, you really did that. Like you did it. By yourself, and when I'm thinking about all the things that my family and people around me did not do ever, or things that they don't have access to, all because their resources are limited in terms of education. And it doesn't mean, it means nothing in terms of like how many degrees you got, or if you even have a high school diploma. If you're not exposed to certain things or certain people, you will never be in those shoes.
Yeah, this is true. This is absolutely true. Listen, you preaching, because let me tell you something. One of the reasons why we do this podcast is for that reason, because believe it or not, in 2021, and I say this on a couple episodes, I've had people say, I didn't know that our people do this or our people do that. Like, and it's shocking to me, because it's like, yo, the internet is there, but it's good to see people that look like you doing these things, right? Because now I can go online because of the circle that I've cultivated and see people trading options, see people buying property, see people trading futures, doing all kinds of amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's important about the circle that you put around you too.
Right.
So you're living a full movie at this point, right?
Yes.
You're living a full movie. I got a couple questions for you. Along this
Yes.
journey, is there any specific book or something that's inspired you?
Yes. The Four Agreements.
Nice.
The
Said
Four Agreements.
Don Miguel Rios, right? Yeah.
Yes. The Four Agreements, that is, I feel like that's like the book of life. It is such a short, quick read. But it made me feel, I don't know, I've got so much from that book in general. One book that I'm actually currently reading now, and it made me, I have a different perspective of this person. I now know who Curtis Jackson is versus 50 Cent, and my respect level is like
Is it
super duper
Hustle
high.
Smarter?
Yes.
I just
Yes.
finished. I literally just finished that like a couple weeks ago.
Listen, such an amazing book. Like
You know what's
it's
crazy?
really good.
All right, it's crazy. I'm gonna bring this up. We on a little tangent. I was telling
Okay.
someone the other day, right? Because I read 50's other book too, right? You got a couple other books. I said I actually might like 50's books better than his music. Like, and then I know it's a crazy thing to say because he's known as being 50 Cent, but his books,
Right.
like his
It's
business
different.
books, like even like the 50th Law was another good one, right? The 50th Law. If you haven't read that
I
one,
gotta
which
read that.
yeah, so that was before this one, but his books on like entrepreneurship and just mindset, I think are probably
Different.
better than his music. Like, so that definitely was a good book.
Absolutely. And then, he talks about that too. So that's why I said, like, I have a respect, I now know the difference between 50 Cent and Curtis Jackson. And
Yeah.
so, if anything, I want to meet Curtis Jackson. I'm not worrying about G Unit or 50 Cent. I mean, I understand the hood life, the
Yeah, I got
gunshots.
you.
I understand that.
Yeah.
We on a different level now. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's some good books right there. So now,
Yeah,
other question, right? And you've shared a lot, and thank you for sharing a lot. If you had to look
absolutely.
back at your journey to see where you got to now, what would you say is the biggest hurdle for you personally that you had to get over to achieve what you have and to put you in the place you are now?
The biggest hurdle, believe it or not, is survivor's remorse.
Okay, go into
And
that.
so, yep, I been in therapy for 3 years now. 3 years. Shout out to my therapist. I think everybody should go to therapy. Um, but
Before
survivor.
you tell a story, let me ask you this question.
Yep, yep.
Because in our community, the way therapy is looked at is kind of, I was just having this conversation with someone in my family, and I was telling them, like, therapy, we got to actually start to have these conversations. How did you get to the point where you actually went to therapy, and was that a difficult decision for you to go? Because I know how it's looked at in our community.
Yes, it was a very difficult decision for me to make in my community. And I feel like this was one thing that I didn't necessarily want to, like, I'm an open person, but I didn't want to openly talk about it initially when I was thinking about it. And so at 25, I didn't know who I was. And it's because school was life for me. I always went to school, always had two jobs while I was in college, joining my sorority, doing all these things. So even when I became a teacher, I was getting my master's. And so now I'm 25. I have my master's degree. I've been teaching the same thing for 3 years. When I come home, when I get off of work and I come home, I have nothing to do. I done already called my parents. I done already graded everything. I did not know who Coco was. What do I like to do? What is that? I couldn't necessarily sit in silence. My mind would just be running, thinking things that I've never thought about before, thinking about things that happened to me in my upbringing, like just so much. And it was very traumatic.
Mhm.
And I would go out, with friends or whoever. I could be having a great time. I can have mid shot in the air, and my mood just changed, and I'm ready to go home. I don't want to talk to nobody. Like, and I don't know where that was coming from. And
Mhm.
so I was like, I even at the new job, I had got a new job. So I'm there. I'm like crying in the bathroom. I was a person, I felt like, listen, I've been through so much in my life. Cry for what? What you crying for? I deemed, for me, crying as being weak. But
Mm.
it was okay for absolutely everybody else to cry. But when you're the strong person for everybody, you feel like you don't have nobody to turn to, and you
Yeah.
don't want them to view you as being weak.
Hmm.
And so I would tell myself that I was weak. And we self-sabotage, or me, I'll speak for myself. Used to self-sabotage so bad, so bad. And then I was like, I have to find me a therapist. So I started reaching out, I started calling insurances. And one thing that I realized in that process, had a job, had benefits. So they was going to pay for therapy free of charge. It's already included. I'm calling, and all the therapists that I'm trying to go to, they're like, oh, we don't accept your insurance. We don't accept your insurance. This happened 3 times. So I
Mm.
said, if I was somebody in crisis who literally was contemplating taking my own life, I would have did it. How do you get turned down 3 different
For,
times?
yeah,
All
that's
because
crazy.
I don't have state insurance.
That's crazy.
When I tell you I couldn't believe it, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, this is an issue. This is a problem. I'm like, I couldn't believe it, but I was successful. Thank God. Found my therapist, and my therapist has definitely made my life 10 times better.
Okay.
My changing my mindset, like the way I think. If something didn't go my way before, I would be upset, pissed, livid. Now I'm thinking like, and this, what could you learn from this? What could you take away from this situation? This is a learning moment right now. Why do you think X, Y, and Z didn't happen? Or maybe that now is not the time. And I am a
Mhm.
believer that everything happened for a reason, and what's for you will never ever miss you. We're promised 2 things in this world: the day that we come in and the day that we leave. That's it.
Mhm.
Everything in between, it's up to you.
Yeah, man, that's powerful stuff right there. So, if you had to like pinpoint, and I guess you just said that, but I want to make sure I ask you this question, because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
this is an important conversation about therapy.
Yep.
How, if you had to pinpoint one thing in terms of how it's improved you the most, maybe in business or personal, what would you say about like therapy? You said it's been 3 years now. So over
Yep.
those 3 years and taking therapy, like, how would you say it's improved you as a person, as Coco? How has it helped you the most?
I'm vulnerable now. Like I know what it feels to actually feel, right? Like we grow up numb to a lot because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
And so our students or people, in our communities, when they experience whatever it is that they experience, like a lot of people dying now, the violence and all that. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, that's just another, it's that's what happens. That's normal.
Yeah.
And so because I never used to cry, my emotions was literally detached. So anything could happen. I would just be like, all right, cool, be rolling with the punches. But not anymore. I'm in a place where I'm actually able to feel in the moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm human again. Wow, if something hurt my feelings, I'm able to say that. I'm able to speak up. I'm able to adjust my tone, right? I'm not thinking about, just my own self. I'm not being closed minded, but thinking of considering other people at the same time too. Because it's in the world, or where I grew up anyway, it's all for self. You gotta worry about you. Nobody else is worrying about you.
Yeah.
And so and just in that, like just being vulnerable. Being vulnerable.
Wow. Listen, I thank you so much for sharing that, man. This is an amazing conversation. Sheesh. So let me ask you this: a couple things, right? So I noticed that you also got into the vending business,
Yeah.
um, and you had a specific strategy that you use in vending. How did you get into the vending business?
Listen, it was simple. I saw that. I was like, okay, like at this point, I think when you become an entrepreneur, your brain just opens up. Like you're super duper creative and figuring out what's next, what's next, what's next. As an entrepreneur, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Point blank, period. If you don't work, you don't eat. And this is why a lot of people stay at their jobs, which is not a problem. Because I had a 9 to 5 too. I just figured it out. But with a traditional job, you understand stability. You know for
Mm-hmm.
sure that you get paid when you getting paid, how much overtime you got to put in to make an extra 20, 30, how much ever, like
Mm-hmm.
those things. As an entrepreneur, you don't know that at all. So now that I'm an investor, I buy income. So I need all of my money has to make me something. So if I don't get on the stock market today, if I don't do anything, anything that I would actually normally do, if I'm not selling a house or I'm not wholesaling a house, or if one of my tenants didn't pay rent, like how am I going to eat? So
Yeah.
it has to keep going. It has to keep going. So I was an educator. I was in education for 6 years. I'm a person who, I love to network. So I'm going to talk to whomever it is, wherever I go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter who you are, what you do. If you're the janitor, I'm treating you the same way I would treat the CEO. Um, and so I'm like, all right, I need some vending machines. I know what the schools need. I was a teacher. I know what
Mm-hmm.
teachers want in vending machines. Like, who wants to keep going outside to the poppy store? You don't have enough time, whatever. Cool.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? One of my business partners, who's also a principal, I'm like, well, I can just put vending machines at her school. I could just
Mm-hmm.
do that. Oh, great. So I reached out to the people. I said, hey, they said they're selling these vending machines. I go. I purchased 2, and that was on a Wednesday. I'm like, I need 5 by Friday. Now because I'm a risk taker, I'm not putting 5 vending machines in one school. If
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, if I could, I would. But I'm like, I'll figure out the rest later. I'm not worrying about that. But let me get them while I have the money. And so I sold some Apple stock, some options, and purchased 2 vending machines. Thursday, I had 3 more. So when I went back, so I bought 2 on Wednesday, bought 3 on Thursday, and when I went on Thursday, I said, listen, either I can buy all these machines from you and sell them myself, or we can partner. And they was like, oh, no, we can partner. And I said, all right, cool, done deal. Nice to a business. And so since then, it's been up, and I've been selling vending machines, selling vending machines with locations, some just vending machines by themselves, and when I say with locations, vending machines that's already placed at a location. So if you are somebody who's interested, you don't have to do anything but replenish your machine. We'll teach you how to work the machine, everything that you need to know about the machine, give you the keys, and it's yours.
Interesting. I might have to get with you on that one. You gotta already turnkey business.
That's it. And that's the thing. It's like, as long as you are showing people and you're educating them. And one thing I can say about us, and when I say us, and not that I'm speaking for all Black people, but you got to show us. You can't just be on here talking about, yeah, I own this and I sell this, and you have to show people.
Absolutely.
You got to show us. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a position where I really am, like, no cap. Like, I'm really, everything that I'm saying, it's the truth. It's real. Success has results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, you outside right now as we speak. You on the road.
I'm outside right now. I'm like,
that's right. That's right. Listen, you are literally living. Your next step now is to write the book, because you're living a movie. I don't know if you know that or not, but you live in a movie.
You. I started writing a book in 2017 when I started therapy. I started writing a book, and then I started like getting super busy. So I have like 2 books in the making in terms of like about my life. I do have an ebook out, but that's not about my journey or entrepreneurship or what have you. That's more so geared to real estate and investing. But I definitely do. I have to finish the book. It's so much that I need to add now, and I think that's something that I'm going to read over and over and over again.
No, listen, because you have an inspiring story, and there's probably like so many. I think about all the little Black girls in North Philly that will see your story and be inspired, right? Because you're one of them, and you've done tremendous things, and you'll continue to do tremendous things. So first and foremost, I just want to say that I'm proud of you, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm pretty sure your mom is proud. Like I know, like the entire journey you guys have been through. I'm pretty sure she's extremely proud of you.
Absolutely, she is.
Yeah, and also shout out to all your mentors too, because one of the things that was prevalent in this story that you told was how many people actually helped you up. So like shout out to all the mentors out there, because that's so important. And as you guys can see, like I'm really enjoying this conversation, and now you see why I had to have her on here to tell her story, because her story is she's literally. So when you listen to this, you'll know years from now when the movie comes out, you know that you heard her tell her story here, because you live in a movie. But Coco, listen, again, I just want to wish you continued success. I want to say thank you. And I want to tell you to keep sharing your story, even outside of here. Just make sure you do that, because you're helping and inspiring. You inspired me. Like, I feel like I gotta do something right now. So, no, seriously though, I gotta listen, because now you're in a position where we have to reach back and help other folks. You talk about the people that helped you. So it's incumbent upon us to do the same thing, right? So, so you definitely inspired me. So I just want to say thank you. And I will make sure to put all of your links and anything that you got going on within the show notes, as well as the description. So for the folks listening or watching, please go check out Coco. Shoot her a message. Like, check out everything that she's got going on. She's the real deal. She's out here helping our people. She's about our people first and foremost. And that's very important to me. So just want to say thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Just to, be able to share a space like this, I think is amazing, right? I think all that you do is great. And I've been following you for some time. And so even for us to connect, I was like, I feel really, really good about that. Yeah, I do. And y'all keep up the good work. It's so much that I have to, learn. I'm a forever learner at the end of the day. And I don't think, it never, for me, learning never stops. And so it's a lot of things that I actually got to circle the block
Hey,
and learn from you.
listen. We family now, so we're gonna help each other. You're gonna teach me
Facts.
vending. We're gonna talk crypto. We're gonna do the whole thing. So it
I
is what
got
it
you.
is, man. I got you. And so listen, for the folks out there, please follow Coco. Check everything she's got going on. The sister's amazing. She's powerful, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future. To our audience out there, make sure you subscribe, share this. Make sure you share this because this is a powerful story. And as we always say, it's not about how much money you make; it's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll check you guys out in our next episode. Peace.